This Let's Edit with Media Composer tutorial is brought to you by VideoGuys.com, the leading reseller of video editing and production equipment for more than 25 years. And by Boris Effects, a leading developer of visual effect plugins, titling, video editing, and workflow tools for broadcast, post-production, and film professionals. Hey everyone, Kevin P McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Let's Edit with Avid Media Composer tutorial. And in this lesson, we're talking about the one topic that Avid editors love to hate. And no, I'm not talking about Titler Plus. I am talking about the new Avid interface. The one reason that everybody is not updating to the newest version of Media Composer. And I hope that after this lesson, you are going to love the new interface as much as I do. To be honest, I can't even think about going back to the old interface with just how much quicker my editing has become with this very, I'll call it a controversial update. Now, as always, before we get rolling, I want to give a big shout out to my footage partner, Artgrid. Now, as always, I like to show you guys a few of the great clips that you can download, plus thousands and thousands of others over at artgrid.io. You can always find a link to get over there in the show notes at the bottom of this tutorial. All right, so let's get rolling. Let's talk about the new interface. So as always, we're going to Command or Alt and Tab into Avid Media Composer. Now, this is always sort of the first big complaint that I see from editors when they are going to update to the new interface. They don't like it. They don't like being forced to change into something that's different from what it was before. And believe it or not, as much as you might not believe it now, this new interface is much more streamlined than it ever has been in the past. And it's just going to make your life a million times easier. Now, in the situation that we're in, I've created a new user setting just so that I can start right from scratch to show you sort of what you're going to see now. I'm working on a multi-display setup. I've got 3 monitors, of which my left monitor is used strictly for waveform and vector scope. Center one is used primarily for the editing, and then I have a right display that I use for grading and things like that. Now, for me, I like to work in a single display setup. If you work in a dual display setup, right now, what you can't see, but I'm going to put an image on the screen to show you, is that on my left screen, I actually have my bin container, my workspaces, and everything essentially set to go for working in a multiple screen setup. Now, it might not be on the correct screen. I might want the main bins to be on my middle screen and the composer window and the timeline to be on the right, but I'll show you how you can get in and set that up in just a second. What I want to do right now is to show you what we're going to do to bring everything over and have it set up in one specific display, and then I'll show you how you can tailor that a little bit to get things the way that you like it. All right? So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you by dragging over my main bin window into the interface that we're working on right now. Let me just minimize what I have here. There we go. You can see that this is our main Media Composer window, the main interface window. How do I know this? Because at the very top it says Avid Media Composer Let's Edit. That's the project that I'm working on. All right. Now what I've done is I've just minimized the composer window. So I've pulled everything off the left display. I have everything on the center display. Now, what we want to do is get this all set up so that it's ready to go and to work within a single display. So the first thing that I normally like to do is I come to my windows and I come down and I float all panels. So everything is now separate of each other. You'll see I have the interface window here, I have the composer window here, I have the timeline at the bottom, and I have my bin container right here. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get this window set up where I want it, and I want it set up on this display. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to maximize this window. Boom, just like such. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the bin container to the left side of the screen. I'm simply going to take it, I'm going to drag it right over here like such, and I'm going to let it go. One thing you'll notice is now the bin container takes up the entire interface screen. Now forget the composer window and the timeline for right now. What we're now going to do is we're going to take the composer window and I'm going to drag it right over here and I'm going to dock it on the right hand side like such. I'm going to take the timeline and I'm going to dock that below the composer window. So now what I've just set up is a single display interface. All right. Now, quick and simple, fairly straightforward. What I want to draw your attention to is I'm going to navigate up to Windows, and I'm going to come down here to where it says Host Panels. Now you'll notice I did say that I had 3 displays set up. The left one is display 1, middle one is display 2, right one is display 3. All right. Now there'll be situations where, in this, for example, where I brought everything over to the main window, where maybe on display 1 I have just a gray background. It's basically the interface window that I can't get rid of. I can't see through it to the desktop. The reason that that would be is because you might have display 1 turned on, or basically have both these displays as being active. Once you do, the Media Composer interface is actually going to stretch across however many displays you have this set up for. So for example, for me, because I don't want to have that stretched across multiple screens, I only want to have it on one screen, I'm going to turn it off on display 1. Now keep in mind, you'll notice right here in Host Panels, display 2 is grayed out. The reason being is that that is this display. What that's actually representing is an extension of this window across multiple monitors. Because I don't have a choice but to have a gray background behind this, that will always be grayed out, and you will not have the option of moving it. Now you might like to work in a non-docked scenario across multiple screens. No problem. All you simply have to do is to come in, you can say, and what I should probably do before I do anything else is I'm going to come to Windows, I'm going to come to Workspaces, and I'm just going to save this workspace just so that I have it so I can always go back to it. All right? What you could simply do if you want to have floating panels across multiple displays, no problem. Simply come down and turn on all those host displays. So now basically what I have is a gray background, basically the interface stretching across 3 screens. Now all I have to do is simply come back to Windows, float all panels, and now I can move these into any display that I want. If I wanted these to be on my far right display, if I wanted to have the timeline in the middle display, you can now lay things out however you want. The design of the interface is to be as flexible as it could possibly be. Remember, before in previous versions, before this was accessible to us, we were very locked in. You were forced to have things a certain way. Now, one thing that I absolutely love, and I'm just going to put everything back. You'll see I clicked on the workspace, everything jumped right back. This is one thing that I really love. So what I'm going to do is navigate up to Tools. I'm going to come down to my audio mixer. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to use a tool that I use with the audio mixer all the time, which is the audio tool. Now, you'll notice again 2 separate tools for me to work with, and what I have the ability to do is to actually take the audio tool and I can actually add it right here to the audio mixer. So the 2 of them will be one tool. Now, what's important to keep in mind is that some people don't like working with docked panels. Maybe they'd rather work with a tabbed panel. Well, you'll notice that as I drag this over, I can actually dock this to the left or to the right side. You'll notice that green bar represents where I can actually dock this to. Or what you can do is simply hold Option or Alt, and you'll notice that as soon as I do that, those green bars disappear, and now I have this long green bar only down one side. What that means is that instead of docking it here, I'm actually going to tab it here. So then I'll have 2 tabs, one that will say Audio Mixer and one that will say Audio Tool. And what you can do is rearrange them into whatever order you want to have them in. So now I can stick this on another screen if I want, and keep in mind that at any time if you want to pull this off and actually tab it back in there, what you can do is simply just pull it out, tab it in like such, and now you have it as a tabbed workspace instead of having it, or pardon me, as a docked workspace instead of having it as a tabbed workspace. All right, so let's go on now. Let's talk about the dreaded bin container, the thing that drives fear into the hearts of editors because they hate it, they don't like it, they don't want to use it. Well, let me tell you something. Bin containers are fantastic. Everybody rages at the fact that the project window has gone away. But what's important to keep in mind is that essentially every window or every bin can be the project window or basically the bin container. Okay? So we can close this right here. And I can actually take this, and this looks now exactly like my project does. Okay? And I can double click on the clips in this case to call up the bin container, and you'll see basically there's the clips, there's all of the clips bin, there's all of the clips associated with it. Let's create a new bin. Control or Command and N. Now what you'll see is that much like in previous versions, a new tab has appeared. Let's just call this Graphics. Okay, so we now have Clips, Graphics, and I'm going to create two more. I'm going to create a new bin. We're going to call this Audio, and I'm going to create one last one, and we'll call it Sequences. Okay. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So you got Audio, Clips, Graphics, Sequences. You'll notice Clips, Sequences, Audio, Graphics. Well, one reason you're going to love the new interface is that you can work the way that you've worked all the time. Okay, like this. Tabs, not a big deal. Or what you can do to make your life a million times easier is, again, much like I had just done before with the audio tool and the audio mixer, we can now come in and to create tabbed interfaces, or actually docked interface, where we can get in and set this up however we want to have it set up so that we have super lightning quick access to any of the bins. Now keep in mind, okay, I'm working here like this. This is a pretty good layout, I'd say. Work. You know what? I really need another bin. Okay? Well, keep in mind at any time I can simply navigate over here to the left and I can pull that side out to get access to all of the bins that I have in my project. Or if I don't need that anymore, I can simply close it up like such. I now have only access to the bins that I need, and we're rocking and rolling. Now, what's also important to keep in mind, and I'm just going to pull the audio bin out for a second, is that if you work in a multi-display environment, again, I'm only working in single display, but if you're working in a multi-display environment, I'm just going to close these bins here. Perfect. Is that keep in mind, at any time, I don't have to navigate all the way back here to pull out the bin container to get access to my bins. Every bin is a bin container. So all I have to do is grab the left side of any of these bins and pull them out, and I now have access essentially to the project window. So now I can open Sequences. You'll see it's going to open as a tabbed window. We can then again take it, rearrange it however we want. We can close the ones that we don't need. And if I don't need to see the bins, I can simply close that bin container up and only have access to the information that I need. Now, you are probably thinking, well, Kev, I really like the project window because in certain projects, I like to switch back and forth between resolutions, or how do I get access to my settings? Don't worry, because of the outroar that the actual project window had disappeared, it has been brought back in a very basic form. So what do I mean by that? Well, take a look here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to close the Sequences bin, and all I'm going to do is press Control or Command and 9 on the keyboard. You'll now see we have the project window, but take a look at it. It looks very similar to the new bin container window. You'll see there's really no difference between this and this. The big difference is that I can easily hide this like such, whereas this window, you could dock it somewhere if you want. It's also a great way to get started with switching over to the new bin containers. You could easily dock this by holding Alt and dragging it right over here like such, and have access to the project window constantly if you need to, again, like I said, just to get you rolling. But what I would suggest is don't even bother doing that. Simply keep that project window closed and use the project window contained in each bin container. Now you might be thinking, well, Kev, inside that project window, I used to have access to my, the format tab and the settings and everything like that. You still have access to that. We're going to use the keyboard shortcut of Control Shift and equals, Command Shift and equals for all my Mac friends out there. And you'll see here is the settings window that contains the format tab, the project tab, the user tab, and the site tab. Now, the reason that these three tabs are now here is because your settings that used to be divided up in one massive window into project, user, and site settings have now all been put very nicely and very organized into three separate tabs so that you can find what you need to find as far as your settings go lightning fast. All right, so let's wrap up this lesson right now. I'm going to, in our next lesson, talk about bins. We're going to get in and be more specific talking about bins now that we've got some footage into our project. So this way we can start to get organized, find things easily, and I'm even going to show you some navigation techniques inside of bins that's relatively new to Media Composer that you may not even have known was there. Alright, now as we're wrapping up, I want to remind you to check out our sponsors, Video Guys, for all of your Avid software and hardware, as well as thousands of other products that you can check out over at videoguys.com. And I also want to give a big shout out to the team at Boris FX, makers of Continuum, Sapphire, and Mocha. And don't forget to use that coupon code of MC101 to get 10% off your next Continuum purchase. If you like this tutorial, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, don't hesitate to send them to me at kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.